And we're live. Hello, everyone. This is Coach Ilan with The Coolest Journey. Thank you for attending the very last session of the Cold Spark 21-day challenge. And basically, we're doing a wrap up today of the whole challenge. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to pop them in. And let me see here. Just going to make sure that the panel is open. All right. So what we have on today, it's not going to be a very long call or presentation, I guess. I wanted to give you the rationale, all of the logic that went behind planning this 21-day challenge so that you are ready to or you have a better depth of understanding what's behind it, even if it seems so easy, so simple, but it wasn't all that simple. Let me just minimize a couple of things here on my screen so that I don't get blinded by a few things. And I have the YouTube stuff available. There we go. So it may have seemed easy at the beginning, this 21-day challenge. So it was divided into 3 weeks, 21 days, mostly because it takes 21 to 30 days to acquire a new habit. And cold exposure is one of those things, the more you do it on a regular basis, the easier it becomes. Sure, you can do it once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. If you're dealing with some very specific goals or health issues or um, whatever your why is, if you want to be better at connecting in the present moment, or if you're dealing with some well-being issues like anxiety, depression, PTSD, and you're using cold as a countermeasure, it helps to really develop this cold exposure practice so that when something goes on, it could be your go-to tool. So even though it seemed really simple to just grab a cold pack in your hands, put it underneath your feet, on your forehead, you can put it at the back of your head if you'd like, behind your neck. Um, it's just the more you do this, the more you're going to turn to it as a practice. And I'm saying this because of personal experience. Some of you may know I was in a car accident in 2014. I already had some migraines before, but after the car accident, I had over 350 migraines in 6.5 years. Every migraine was 24 hours in the dark, throwing up, not moving, no sound. It was it was a challenging 6.5 years. I spent about 2 of those years in bed, and often I had to be brought to the ER to be rehydrated and given some anti-nausea medication and some muscle relaxants. And let me tell you, that was a trifecta that would give me. A number of times they had told me, oh, you have to come before the 24-hour mark. And I kept telling them, yeah, but I always have a headache. Long story short, if I had had a practice of cold exposure before the car accident, I would have known to turn more towards that to better manage my symptoms. Even more than that, had I found out about cold water swimming, I would not even have had migraines. I know that for sure because of what it did to my life. And that was on a daily practice. So it pays off to be determined and to have a little bit of pigheadedness in you or determination. Basically, when you put a practice in place, knowing your why is critical. So when I did this planned for this cold spark challenge, I wanted it to act like a spark in your life. I wanted that cold be that thing that brings you to the present and brings you joy and makes you feel alive and helps you find your light within and help it shine unto others and into the world so that the entire world can become a better place. Everything that I do with the Coolest Journey is for healing and performance, long life, longevity, however you want to call it. But basically, it's to help people live their best life and embrace adventures again. Now, I really do mean this. This is my mission in life. I hate seeing pain around me. I was a lifeguard for many, many years. Every few months, every 2, 3 months, I have a situation in front of me where I have to intervene. I don't have to. I choose to intervene because I have first aid training. It's an ongoing joke in my family. Just last week, I didn't have to once again, but the second car in front of us lost control. The young woman hit the cement um, partition in between the ramp and the abyss, I guess. And yeah, I was with her until the first responders came in. And it's not the first time. I've got a ton of these experiences. And so cold, I'm lucky now that I know this. So that young woman was in shock. And of course, breath work and all of this and calming her down until the first responders come. I'm on the phone with 911 and all of these things, right? Traffic is blocked. It's just the way things seem to be in my life. But I was going to Kitsilano for the free ocean outing. And being in cold water right after this really helped me to process everything that had gone on for me as a responder. And I felt absolutely horrible. I mean, the poor young woman who hit that partition, at least it was a one-car accident. It was, you know, if we think about the big picture, it was the best case scenario. She slipped on something on the pavement and lost control of the vehicle. It could have been a multi-car accident given where she was, and it was around a curb. It could have been so bad with just one car. And she was shaking, like I said, shock response, normal response. But it's also the first responders who are there, right? The people who are there as the first ones on the scene. Um, yeah, it affects everyone. It affects the victim and it affects everyone who is doing the first aid or who is trying to help out until the real first real until the official first responders come on the scene. Because I knew I was going into the cold ocean afterwards, I knew not to think too much about past trauma. And in the cold water, I was able to work on and process some of that trauma. And I was back in the water the next day and the day after. And yes, I had some body pains afterwards for a number of reasons. We didn't hit anyone, we didn't hit anything, but just a bracing brings back some things in the body. Normal thing, but I can manage all of these things thanks to the cold water exposure practice that I have. So if I knew back then what I know now, I would say, oh my goodness, everyone needs to have some type of practice in their life of cold exposure, whether you do it at home, whether you go out into an open body of water, that is up to you. But perhaps when things happen in your life and you need a reset, if you can think maybe cold is your friend, then I'll have done my job. And maybe your quality of life will also be better and will have been improved because of this. And then I will know that you're going to be part of my 10,000 people that I hope to help by 2035. So that was part of why I made it a 21-day challenge, is so that you can develop it into a habit. If it takes longer for you to develop a habit, then that's okay. I'll talk about next steps in a few moments. I wanted to let you know why it was 21 days. Also, why we started so low is because I also feel that many people are afraid of cold. And so we have to start really slowly and progress. Now, any coach knows this. We have to take people where they are and we try and bring them to where they want to go. I don't know your specific goal at home, but I'm assuming it has to do with something about health, about performance, maybe. Maybe you want to be snapped back into the present moment, but I'm assuming it has to fall into one of the main goals that we've talked about. And I'm going to talk about another one that has been quiet so far, but it's also underlying everything that I do. But some of the main goals that people do cold exposure usually fall under health, performance, just being in the present moment. And I call it performance, but it's really about being your best self, showing up for yourself on that day. And let me see. Oops, do I have a question here? Nope, it's not a question. Um, Sorry, it's one of my first times where I'm trying to get some questions at the same time. So I'm trying to multitask. I am not good at multitasking. There's a problem with my brain in that regards. So this is my weakness, and that's okay. I fess up to it. Uh, I'm trying to do questions here. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is 3 weeks, develop a habit. Your why is your why. And maybe you have many reasons why you're doing this, but as long as they are top of mind to keep you motivated, then that's good enough. So the first week, we focused on just getting it done. And we started at a very low point because we're starting wherever people could be. Start really low and then go slow in terms of progression. And this approach is something that you can use in so many other aspects of your life. So most coaches do exactly this. Like I was saying before, they take a person in, sit down with them. What are your goals? Where are you now? Okay, so here's where you are. Here's where you want to go. And here's, how we're going to get there. Here's the plan. And because I don't have all those informations, I'm going to assume we're starting really low and we're going to go really slow in terms of the progression. So if you've had zero cold exposure, great. This is a great way for you to start. And it's slow and it's easy. And you can go faster if you feel like you can, or you can hold back if you feel like this is too much in terms of the increments. That's okay. It's whatever works for you. So that was a length, that was a progression. So the first week, it was all about getting it done. The second week was about building momentum. And the third week was about transformation and identity, trying to make it a part of you and seeing how cold can help you or make your life so much better, like it did for me. Now, I'm going to be upfront. It was cold water swimming that did it for me, but it was also combined with an anti-inflammation diet and some other energy therapies that I've been doing for quite a while. More specifically, I do PEMF, pulse electromagnetic field therapy. And when I did end up with long COVID in 2022, I added hyperbaric chamber. You can do whatever you want in terms of therapies. If I had today a car accident or some other type of traumatic brain injury, the number one thing I would try on myself is cold water swimming if I can, cold water immersion every single day. And if it's a bad one, multiple times a day, shorter periods of time, multiple times a day, so that I can try and control the inflammation in the brain and try and reset the nervous system because, and we've talked about this in one of the past talks with Gabriela Herrero, my guest, who's been on this challenge, and also a very good friend of mine I call her my ice mermaid. And so she swims regularly in ice waters. And we know that with buoyancy, basically gravity on land, buoyancy in the water, we float. That's buoyancy, that's the force of water. It disengages the nervous system in some very specific ways. So if you are comfortable in water, then therefore your sympathetic system tends to be relaxed here. Your sympathetic system engages. This is your central nervous system. We want to be more into parasympathetic. Sympathetic is more your fight, flight, like direct response, and we're always like, your parasympathetic system is your rest, your digest, and and this is where we get quality of life. This is where we gain so much from a cold exposure practice, is that it helps us to calm down. It helps to bring up the other part of our nervous system. Not right away. If we go in and we're stressed and it's the first, depends on people, it can be the first 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 90 seconds. There's going to be more of there's a cold shock response, but it can also be that reflex of we hold our breath or we inhale. And if you're in the water, you could inhale water. And I'm going to briefly talk about that other why that I'm going to mention, which is safety. Cold water safety. So if that happens, very dangerous. For sure, the sympathetic system is engaged, and it can be a life or death situation. Once you pass that initial shock response, the body relaxes and it feels like a giant hug. It's strange to say, but it's a cold hug on the body. So yeah, that's how I can describe it. So the length of time, 3 weeks. We started very low in terms of exposure and the time, and we increased it to 4 or 5 minutes for body exposure, plus during the day, 2 to 3 times, holding something cold for 30 seconds, 60 seconds, so that you can get that multiple times a day cold exposure. By doing it multiple times a day, what it also does is that if it forces a pause in your day where you can just do that cold exposure and maybe do some breath work at the same time. Let's talk about the breath work. And by doing that, you're resetting your whole nervous system. You've got cold exposure, you've got breath work happening. And so you're helping everything to reset. And now you've got increased capacity to deal with the rest of your day. In another language, if I may, I remember talking to one of the psychiatrists who followed me for after the car accident. And she was telling me, you have to think about your day in terms of energy units. You wake up in the morning, you have to evaluate how many energy units do you have on a scale of 0 to 100. Are you at 50? Are you at 30? Or are you at 90? If you slept well, chances are you're 80, 90, maybe 100. You wake up, you're like, oh, great day. All right, let's go out there. Not all of us are like that. Maybe some of us are, okay, no, I didn't sleep too well. It's not great, but I'll go along, right? 70%, 60, 70%. And some other of us are in a more critical category where we wake up in the morning and maybe we're at 20% capacity. Maybe just even getting out of bed takes all of the 20 energy units that we have. And then we have to figure out a way to replenish those energy units. Brushing our teeth could take another 5 to 10 units that we don't even have in reserve. I know, I've been there. I've gone through some pretty tough years. And cold exposure can actually help to bring everything back to the moment and replenish those energy units. And I'm not saying you're going to top it up to 100, but you could go from 30 to 40 or 20 to 45 or 50. Depends on what you do in terms of your cold exposure practice. If you're doing it at home or if you're just going out for a walk in your local park, or if you're actually going in the water. In the water is going to be the most powerful one. But even if you just go for a walk in your shorts and t-shirt and it's kind of cool outside, in a safe way, always, always be safe, right? There's something about nature therapy, and I encourage you to go on either Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, so it's the Coolest Journey podcast. So it's my podcast that is there. And I've done 2 interviews with a researcher from Cumbria University, Dr. Mark Christie, where we talked about green therapy in our first episode together. So I think it was episode number 2. And in my latest episode with him, which was, I'm not sure, it's in the episode 20 something, we talked about blue therapy benefits. And basically, just being outside, it brings so much more to our life. We feel better. It's nature therapy. There's something called forest bathing in Japan, right? Just being outside, looking at the sky, looking at water flowing with therapy, even just looking at the water, not even being in it. Maybe we look at mountains. Maybe we just look at one tree or one flower, and we do some breathing exercise as we look at that. The power of the gaze as well. If you're just standing and you're looking out at a cloud in the sky, and you do some breath work while you're looking at that cloud, and you think of nothing else, or you try to anyway, that helps to rest the brain. It took me, it was last year that I found out what resting the brain meant after being told from 2014 on by many medical team I was calling it my medical team my medical team comprised of medical professionals. So many times I had been told, you need to rest your brain, Hélène. And I was like, yeah, but what do you mean by resting my brain? The power of the gaze. Go outside and gaze. And if you can't go outside because you're not mobile, because you don't have enough energy units to go outside, that's okay. Go to your window and look outside. Look at the sky. Look at the texture of the sky. Look at the clouds. Look at a tree. Look at a plant that you have inside your home. Look at a picture of something, right? A picture of the horizon. Oh my goodness. The line of the horizon is one of the most calming things for the brain, where the water meets the sky, especially when they blend into one another and you're trying to to figure out where that line is. It is extremely calming and resting for the brain. So I'm giving you a lot of information here. But basically, it's all about activating the parasympathetic system. It's about going into that more peaceful area of your body, of your mind, and it's to give you those tools to reset, those tools to bring those energy units back up. It's not always about, oh, I need to go and take a nap because I'm tired. There are many other strategies that you can use, right? I mean, if you follow Tony Robbins, there's a number of researchers as well who talk about poses. Like, you can have a power pose where you have your hands on your hips, you're standing with your feet shoulder width apart, back straight, and you're smiling at yourself, or you're looking at yourself. Hold that posture for 2 minutes. And it's I mean, it is proven to work on hormone production in our body so that we do feel good. If you're in a darker space, you need a little bit more than that. You need more of a boost. Cold. Absolutely. So start with cold and maybe do one of the power poses. Maybe you chant. Maybe you do the lip flutter. One of my friends was telling me, "Oh, you mean those horse lips?" Yeah, I guess so. The horse lip thing. All of these things will work to take a step back from the present moment, build your capacity to deal with life and with everything else, and then go back so that you can be your best self. There's a lot of thinking behind that very simple 21-day program, but you got the big lines over here. Now, I mentioned safety earlier, and I'm going to expand on it right now. That is it was a goal when I did the 21-day Cold Spark Challenge, but it is one of my key goals in offering the programs that I do with the Coolest Journey, whether in person or online. And I don't mention it in my website, but I'm telling you, and I haven't mentioned it either on social media, but I've had quite a lengthy conversation with a great friend of mine whom I swim with, uh, almost every day. And also had that conversation during a kayak course that I took about cold water safety. There are drownings, hundreds of thousands of drownings every year around the world. And the numbers are still about 40% of them happen in cold water. Now, it depends on who you talk to, what is cold water. If you talk to, I think it's Transport Canada, in terms of boat safety, it's less than 21 degrees. Well, that's actually warm at 21 degrees. I mean, 20.9 Celsius. It's almost like a bathtub water for me at this point. But 17, 16, and it's getting colder, right? And I took some notes. I just want to share this with you. Um, if you're looking at, so Health Canada is less than 15 degrees Celsius, could be potentially life-threatening. The Coast Guard in the US is the same thing. It's 15 degrees Celsius or 59 degrees Fahrenheit. The American Canoe Association says it's 60 degrees or 15 degrees. And the American Whitewater Association is 50 degree Fahrenheit, which is 10 degrees Celsius. But these associations don't have members partaking in activities in the water, but rather on the water. So if you're on the water and you fall in, these temperatures are putting you at risk. Where I'm doing the programs, we have water temperatures right now anywhere between, it depends on where we go, but it could be anywhere between 4 and 8 degrees at this time of the year. So it's considerably colder, so our exposure is less, and we do it in we control as many of the variables as possible. So if we're looking at cold water, not from a on the water activity, but rather in the water. If we're looking at cold water for therapy, recovery, deliberate cold water exposure we're looking at cold water for physiological and psychological effects, not just as a means of doing activity. It's completely different. So let me just pull those figures. So government, yes, I talked about less than 21 degrees. Hypothermic issues could be less than 15 degrees. But from a sports recovery research, we're looking at anything between 10 and 15 degrees Celsius, which is 50 to 59 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you're looking at cold plunge protocols, biohacking world, we're looking at 3 to 10 degrees Celsius. Once again, I would highly recommend that you follow Susanna Soberg, the researcher whose specialty is contrast therapy. There's also Dr. Craig Heller out of Stanford University, who's been studying cold effects on human performance. There's also there's a few other researchers in Canada who have been looking at cold water safety, cold water survival, and a few have been looking into cold water performance. But if you listen to my podcast with Dr. Martin Gibala, who is a kinesiologist out of McMaster University, we talked about his research on interval training, which was absolutely fascinating. But we talked about what if we were to try and do this in a colder environment, more specifically in cold water. And he was basically saying there are a lot of variables that we don't control. And so it would make it very difficult to do this kind of study. Not impossible, but just very difficult. And there's just no funding for this kind of thing. But there are quite a lot of benefits that could be had from doing this research, mostly because of what I've been seeing in terms of miracles with the various populations I've been helping. So it's not because the research isn't there that it's not good for us. And at the same time, we have to approach it with a safety mindset. It's not because, oh, everyone is going plunging that it's going to be easy and that there's not going to be any effects on a person. At the very beginning of the program, I mentioned if you have any kind of health issue, you want to make sure that you get clearance from your medical team. I really mean that. It could be anything from high blood pressure, cardiac issues, ranging all the way to cold allergies. Even on my kayak weekend, someone was actually telling me, yes, I developed this kind of reaction to cold and I don't do well with cold anymore. It happens, right? Our bodies can change. And it's not because this is happening that more exposure is going to make it better. So we have to make sure that we are listening to our bodies and we do what's appropriate to our bodies. So cold exposure is not for everybody, but it's not because you don't like it that your body's not gonna like it. If you're following what I mean, like, let's assume that there is no medical risks to you by doing it safely in terms of cold exposure. You may feel at the moment where it's happening, like, oh, I don't want to be cold. I don't like cold. But that could be your head or your emotions speaking while your body is actually screaming for it, like telling you, I need this cold to feel better, because that's when we replenish our energy units in the battery, because this is how I can help you to deal with everything else going on in life. Maybe, you've got some relationship issues in the family. Maybe you've got some kids who are acting up. Maybe you've got a very demanding job and you need to make sure that you are composed and, you don't react, but that you learn to take a breath and act in the best way for you so that you can represent yourself and you're acting along your values and what you want out of life. And that cold can do that for you, once again, if done safely. So, in terms of water safety, yes, you have to be safe. And actually, Susanna Soberg has actually developed quite a protocol about contrast therapy, not just cold exposure, because she doesn't really go into cold water swimming. I just think that would be Dr. Mike Tipton out of the UK, but she does contrast therapy. So if you're into, yes, I'm going to get cold, but I'm going to reward myself later on with a sauna, then you definitely want to follow her research. So now you understand a little bit better what I'm doing. So the water safety aspect, if someone in Canada is going on a craft in the winter for whatever reason on the water and they fall in the water, if you have the confidence that you can be exposed to cold, you're not going to panic as much as if this is your first time and you hate the cold and you're really afraid. Everything, right, starts to spiral, and this is not looking good in terms of survival uh, stats. So if with my programs, I can help people save themselves, have better and improved control on their breath, um, better cardiovascular endurance and strength, and you can modulate your breath by controlling you can play with different exercises here, then you might be able to reduce your cold shock response time, even when you're out in really cold waters, and have more time to figure out what is it that you need to do to get to safety. Maybe you're going to be out swimming, who knows, for 20 minutes. Maybe you're going to be taking part in a winter swimming competition. Maybe you want to go to the Arctic or Antarctic and swim in cold water and see the orcas underwater. There's a lot of footage on that lately on YouTube. Maybe that's not even part of what you want to do. Maybe you're just quite happy, you know, sipping some drink on the beach somewhere hot and you want nothing to do with the cold water. Well, let's say you do go on a boat and something happens, even if it's warmer waters, knowing that your body can handle colder temperatures gives you some type of confidence that, you know what, I got this. This is going to be okay. And so this is why I do what I do. Sorry, it's a long-winded explanation, but basically it's just to show you that there's a lot of thought that went behind creating this program. The inspirational quotes were also there so that it helps you go deeper into the practice if you want to. If you don't want the extra reflections, that's okay too. And if you wanted to redo, let me keep that for the next step. So if you're looking at this practice, this 21-day cold spark challenge, as from purely a novice, you've done the 21 days, then you're at the point where you need to decide what you're going to do next. If you've done this 21-day cold spark challenge and you already have some type of cold exposure practice, I hope that you got some more things out of it, especially with the breath work and the inspirational quotes and some of the reflection questions, the gritlet, as I call it, right? And maybe you've developed more of a daily practice as opposed to a couple of times a day. Now, what's next? What do you do next? I've got a few options for you. Do it all over again. Or take the last week and see, well, you know what? Those last 7 days, we basically brought it up to 4 to 6 minutes of total body exposure in the cold. Maybe you just keep at it 4 to 6 minutes every day. You just expose yourself a couple of other times in your day. You hold something cold in your hands. All good. And if that is helpful to you and you feel a difference, maybe that's what you keep doing. As long as you tie it to your why, like why is it that you do it? Because you feel good, because whatever your reason is, because you want to be safe on the water. I mean, it's not usually a top of mind one. It is for me, but maybe that's not your top of mind reason why you do this. Maybe your why is because you want to be a better spouse, a better partner, a better parent. Um, Maybe you want to be a better human being and you want to be able to contribute more to the world, especially if you're in pain and you cannot let your light shine, not because you don't want to, but the pain is making you recoil and go back unto yourself. This could be helping you better manage the pain so that you can be out there. And we are all born with talents, and the world would benefit so much if we could all share our talents in a positive way and let our light shine. And that's one way that you can continue on from here. Another way, if you're in the area, if you're in the BC area, and you would like to come to one of the free ocean outings, I do have two coming up. So it's on the first Saturday of each month. The next one is on, let me see, it's on April 4th, 8 a.m. at Kitsilano Boathouse. And then we have May 2nd at 8 a.m. Kitsilano Boathouse. You can go on Eventbrite to sign up for those, or you can go on my website, thecoolestjourney.com, where you'll see it. It's listed there, and you can just sign up. And then we're going to take a pause for the summer because the waters are warmer. And then we're going to be back in October. First Saturday in October is planned. And that's the second part of what you can do afterwards. So basically, just keep your practice, and maybe you want to take it outside more. Maybe you want to find a group. We've talked about this with Gabriela. Maybe you go on Facebook. Maybe you go to your local cold plunge place. Maybe you try and talk to people. Who else is doing this around where I am? Where can I go? Make sure you have good water quality. Make sure it is safe. Make sure safe entry, safe exit. You've got, different emergency plans in place as well. And yeah, just enjoy the practice. It makes such a difference in our lives. And if you really, really want to see where it could lead you, I highly recommend that you watch Montreal's Ice Surfer. There's a documentary called Montreal's Ice Surfer. His name is Orion Miller. He's originally from BC. He was in Montreal surfing in the winter, and someone did a documentary on him. And he now lives, well, he is originally from BC. He lived in Montreal. He's back in BC in the Vernon area. So if you wanted to catch Orion Miller, you can actually follow him on his YouTube channel. There's different ways, Instagram. He's part of he's a professional musician, so he is part of a band. And the water, this cold exposure practice that he does at -20, -30, -40 degrees out there, right? It is helping him in different areas of his life as well. And I also interviewed Tom Heyerdahl on my podcast. Tom is an ice swimmer from Ottawa, and he talks about how the cold has helped him to process different things happening in his life. And he gives back to the community in such a beautiful way. And the picture that I have behind me actually is Tom Heyerdahl's pool in Ottawa, on the Ottawa River. And it's absolutely beautiful. I've also interviewed Gabriela Herrero on my podcast, and she also talks about how more joyous her life is because of this. And it's not just separate people. If you look at footage of people swimming, you'll see happy people everywhere, but you don't have to swim. You don't have to do a cold plunge. I mean, it's great to be out in nature and do this because then we get nature therapy and then we can do the breath work out there at the same time. It's great. You can do it from home, basically. And the breath work, I want to underline this. Wim Hof is a great program, great way of doing the breath work as well. I don't follow this mostly because it's not because I don't believe in what he's doing. It's just because I go in and I swim. So I don't do breath holds before it because it would definitely not be a good combination. Um, I go in there and I get in, I do a little gratefulness practice, right? Gracias por la tierra y papá cielo. That's my gratefulness practice. And I'm grateful for whatever it is, and for the water, for the mountains, for my friends with me. And then I set an intent. And I would say today, I swim for, and I can name people, or I swim for healing of the planet, or, you swim for something else than you. And being grateful is also a part of all of this. And I haven't really touched on this. There's going to be a lot more about gratefulness practice in other challenges and um, other things that I do. But for the 21-day cold spark challenge, we just focused on the cold exposure itself, doing the breath work, the various breath exercises that I gave you, and I would say combine it with a gratefulness practice. You've got nothing to lose, and see how wonderful your life can be. And if you want to take this to the next level in terms of your cold exposure, you're like, yeah, this is working for me. I want more of this. I highly recommend that you check out thecoolestjourney.com and see what I have to offer online in terms of courses and also in terms of in-person experiences, whether it's reboot weekends or immersive weeks, 5 days or 7 days. There are more coming up. And I would love for you to be a part of those activities. But what I've been doing is I screen people coming to those experiences because I don't want them to start from a zero point of view of cold exposure novice. So this 21-day challenge is really a great way for people to have a step up into my programs. And that is why I was offering it for free so that people can see it is cold for me. Yes, no. Yeah, I like doing the practice, but I'm okay doing the practice from home. That's good. Like this practice and I'm going to maybe go once in a while to this ocean outing thing. Great. I live too far from you and I'm going to go and do it with some friends. Perfect. If you want to take it further, you know where. Otherwise, you can continue doing what you're doing. I hope this was useful to you, and I really hope that we get a chance to connect one way or another in the future. I really encourage you to keep listening to my podcast. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel so that I can keep offering these great things. Now, just one last thing, actually, if you are taking your practice out in open waters, and you're looking for equipment, I do have a whole list of products on my website under the category shop. I do have an Amazon affiliate link. And so every time you go there and you order something from Amazon, then I get a little bit of a commission, and that helps me to provide you with high quality content without having to charge. So that's it for me today. Once again, I wish you all the best. And if you have any questions, comments, do get in contact with me. You can do so through my website or through Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. You know where to find me. May the light shine within you, and may you be able to shine your light upon our world. I wish you all of this. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.